everybody, it's Soaping Sunday, and today I want to show you how I went from a checkerboard pattern in my soap to this. Let's get into how I made this goat milk soap and show you how I did the pattern and cut this baby open, because I want to know what happens when you make a checkerboard pattern, you swirl it, what that looks like on the inside. So let's jump into the video of me making this and then we'll cut it. Okay, to get started with making goat milk soap, I start with my first ingredient, which is coconut oil. I melt that down and I measure out the castor oil in a separate bowl along with the olive oil, which I use quite a bit of olive oil. And then I take the melted coconut oil and add shea butter to it. That shea butter is also going to get melted down. While that's melting, I add a separate container of frozen goat milk, which I am weighing everything out so that way I know exactly how much I'm using, because when it comes to sodium hydroxide, which is your lye that causes the chemical reaction that happens to create soap, you need to have precise measurements, and those measurements I calculate at soapcalc.net. And using Soap Calc, I'm able to calculate a recipe that's formulated to be able to use up all of that lye chemical and turn that lye and oil into soap. Having goat milk as the water content in my soap really makes a difference with how the soap feels when you're washing your body. When adding the lye chemical to the frozen goat milk soap, I do it slowly because it can scorch the milk. I find using frozen goat milk is better than using liquid goat milk, just because the liquid goat milk does burn a lot faster than when it's frozen. And so the soap looks and smells better when the goat milk doesn't get scorched. So that process takes about 15 minutes to slowly add the lye chemical and melt down the goat milk soap and make sure that it's completely mixed in. I give the coconut oil and shea butter a good mix with my immersion blender to make sure those are well mixed together. Then I mix the olive oil and castor oil with my immersion blender. When working with lye, I make sure that I am wearing gloves, my lab coat, as well as a face shield, because I want to make sure that I am protected against the chemical, because it does heat up and can cause burns. And even with the frozen goat milk, it still gets over 100 degrees. And I set it aside to allow that to cool down, because I want my oils and my lye goat milk solution to be close in temperature before I mix the two. I give the goat milk and lye a quick blend before I add it in with my oils. I do add it in over the blender in the hopes to try to pop any bubbles before they enter the oils, just to try to keep some of those bubbles out of my soap mix. And then I scrape it to try to get every last bit. From there, I'm going to blend with my immersion blender. This process can take a while to make sure that everything is emulsified and mixed well together. You don't want to see shiny oil separations. You want it all to be a cohesive mix. For the chemical reaction to occur with saponification and it turning into soap, you really need to make sure it's mixed well enough. However, if you overmix it, it can affect your designs. So I'm going to set it aside to allow that to sit, and I will measure out my scent blend. I am measuring out orange 5-fold essential oils, because I want this soap to have a nice citrus scent to it. But I am going to balance that scent out by adding in some undertones of bergamot and cedarwood atlas to give it a bit of a woodsy undertone. And that will also help that orange scent to last longer, having that cedarwood atlas in there, grounding it out. I was able to create this essential oil blend by going on eocalc.com. I'll leave links to those down in the description below. Once I determined that my soap batter has been mixed enough to be mixed to a light trace, I then add in my essential oils. Again, I pour it over the blender stick, that way it pops bubbles before it hits the soap batter. I gently mix that in, and then for this design I'm going to separate this soap batter into 2 containers with an equal amount in each. One will be kept natural and then the other will be colored black using activated charcoal. A little bit of activated charcoal goes a long way, so I start off with a half a teaspoon and add a little bit more. When blending, I start with the natural color soap batter first and make sure that that is at the consistency that I want it to be, which is a light trace, and then I mix my activated charcoal soap batter. Once that's at the consistency that I'm looking for, where it's still runny enough to create my design, I set up my soap mold, which is a loaf mold, propped up on a kitchen towel, and I start pouring my 2 batters of soap at the same time in an attempt to make a checkerboard pattern, and I switch them from one side to the other to continue alternating them. I continue to do that pattern until I'm about 2/3 of the way up the loaf mold. And then I adjust my towel to be a bit flatter so it'll give me a bit more room to work. And that helps to spread the design out a bit so that I can pour more of the checkered pattern into the mold. Once that pattern fully reaches the other side, I take out that towel to allow the design to spread out some more. I notice that the design is getting pretty high up, so I want to make sure I get enough on this side, so I add the towel on the opposite side so that I can fill in the design more on this side. I finish off the soap batter from each container while this side is slightly elevated. And then I give it a little bit of a shake to help it settle in place before I put in the final bits of soap batter. Once all the soap batter is in it, again I give it a little shake and shimmy. I pat it on the countertops to try to get out any air bubbles that have become trapped. I use a skewer to attempt to do a swirl design in the soap. I place it all the way to the bottom and I start zigzagging back and forth, watching to see what the pattern does when I do that. And I realized that I'd like more of a swirl to it. So I go around the edges and then I go up the middle and I start doing a figure 8 pattern on the top. And that gets me the swirls that I was looking for on top. Not sure what it's going to look like in the middle though. Once the design is in place, I give it another pat on the countertop to settle it in place. And I put it aside for 24 hours. I have been having so much fun with making different designs using different colors, different scents. The options are endless when it comes to cold process soap and designs. And I've just been having so much fun exploring these loaf molds and the different designs you can do. I gotta say, I really do like the natural soap contrast with the charcoal. But I can't wait anymore. I need to see what the inside of this looks like. There's that checkerboard pattern, but then the sides and the back end. Wow, let's cut it. I'm gonna give the edges a quick bevel since they're a little bit raised here, just to clean up the look a little bit. Okay, here we go. That is pretty cool. Wow, I am so excited for how these turned out. From starting with the checkers and then seeing the actual swirl strokes. It's just so cool to me how you can make these different designs. I love how the tops came out with the swirls. And then it's just so interesting. Every single soap is different. They just have different swirls. The backs and the fronts are different because I did just sporadic swirls through them. I like it. Now the smell I went with was orange, bergamot, and cedarwood atlas. So it hits you with that orange scent, but with like a woodsy undertone. So it's really nice. Very refreshing. And I always want to encourage everyone to give soap making a try. It's so much fun. And with a little bit of practice and some soap supplies, you can definitely have some awesome soap for you to use. I highly recommend it. I'll put a link down below to some of the soap making supplies that I use, just in case you want to get started and try it out. But as always, thank you for joining me today. And I'll see you next time for the next Soaping Sunday. And if you haven't started soaping yet, what are you waiting for? Get your soap on. And if you liked this video, if you could hit that like button down below and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Thank you so much.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Do you want to farm a wicked awesome farm? Watch this channel to learn what to do. We love to farm and we'll show you. Yeah, welcome to our show.